So like any good teacher, with you being my students, every set of students is different. So I'm not going to teach you something that you already know. And actually, we should make the distinction between teaching and instructing. I hate when we talk about delivering instruction. That's not what teachers do. We teach. Someone who's trying to teach you how to do something that's in a manual can instruct you. So I'm going to teach you today. And the biggest part of teaching is inspiration. So by the time we're done here today, I'm hoping to inspire you to take some action. I'm not going to call it homework. I don't believe in coercive education. I'm hoping to inspire you to do something because you want to. Let's get the research out of the way first. We know that in order for you to learn something and commit it to your long-term memory, not forget it 2 weeks later, you have to have an emotional connection with what you're learning. How many of us learned long division in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and then our 6th grade teachers wondered why we didn't know long division, right? It's because we never committed it, we never connected it with something emotionally. We want to build intrinsically motivated learners. Lifelong learners is the catchphrase that goes along sometime. We can't do that if we're trying to coerce kids into learning. We need it to be intrinsic. And that comes through inspiration, as I was saying before. And the third point I want to make is that, for a long time we've known something that we haven't acted upon. We've done the antithesis of what research tells us. We know that in order for the character trait that correlates best with success and happiness in life is empathy. Yet we spend no time teaching it in school. The title of this lesson is STEM lesson from Newfoundland, Pennsylvania. I think STEM is a very misused and misunderstood term. Sometimes you hear stream, STEAM, add in aesthetics, add in reading. It's all the same thing. It's not science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We don't need better mathematicians, we don't need better scientists, we don't need better engineers, and we don't need kids who are better with technology. What we need is problem solvers. We need kids who can take all of those different disciplines and reading and language arts and the beauty that goes with aesthetics and to put them together to solve real problems in the world. So let's talk about how we do that.
We all take things for granted way too much and don't realize it.
Problem solving is a life skill. You're going to use it throughout life. You know what? I'm going to start something, I'm going to finish it, and I'm going to help someone.
He wants to help someone. For all of my career, I've believed in service learning. I've believed that the best way that we get kids to make that emotional connection that's so important is by getting them to help others. We know that when you feel the joy of doing good for someone else, you want to do it again and again. You want to keep doing it. That emotional connection is there. And if we can tie that to learning and have kids understand how powerful they are when they use their learning for good and not just to pass tests and quizzes, amazing things happen. So why is global learning the best way to do that? Why don't we just focus on our local communities? Well, so many of the problems in the world today come because people don't understand each other or they fear each other. We have the tools right now, educational technology, Skype in the classroom, Skype, video conferencing. It's free. That's my favorite price as a teacher, by the way. I don't know about you guys, but free is my favorite price, right? If we have something that is free and easy to use that allows us to connect with anyone around the world in real time, we should be using that for our kids. We should be connecting them with scientists and authors, artists, national park rangers, people who have a passion for doing good in the world, because passion is contagious, right? And when we expose our kids to passionate people, that passion rubs off on them, and they want to do good too. This is a map that shows the global connections that my school has made just in the last 2 years. We've connected with over 70 countries, the International Space Station, and scientists in Antarctica. In every one of those connections, my students had a chance to see a different viewpoint, to learn from someone who is different from them and outside their community. I live in a very small town, less than 2,000 people. We're very culturally isolated. There's not a lot of diversity. I'm only a two-hour drive from New York City, but most of my kids will never go to Scranton, which is a small city near us. They stay in that small town. If I don't expose them to what else is out there, they'll have a very myopic view of the world. They won't be able to connect with those other cultures. They're going to grow up with that fear that I talked about before. I want to give them a view outside of that. So this is how we do it. And there's a whole list of different ways that we've made those connections before. Sometimes it's as simple as connecting with another class in a different place and trying to guess where their location is. We ask yes or no questions back and forth. We call that mystery Skype. Takes 20 minutes, great way, and then afterwards we ask, hey, what do you eat for lunch in your area? What do you do for fun there? What kind of animals do you have? Kids get to know each other and they develop relationships. And those relationships, when they learn about the problems in those areas, make them want to help in some way. So what I want to do is take you on a learning journey of my 4th grade kids from a couple of years ago. I could take you on several learning journeys. Every kid has different passions, right? And we want learning to be personalized and not standardized. So I'm going to take you on a journey with one group of students, but I could tell a whole different story if I wanted to with a different group of students, because we solve problems that those kids want to solve. I don't force the problems on them. I don't tell them what to solve. It's got to come from them for them to really own it. It's hard to change the world when you don't know much about it. So we try and give kids as many different experiences outside of our little town as we possibly can. Group of 4th graders 2 years ago. Their teacher came to me and said, I want to get them involved in a Made in America campaign. The Good Morning America in the United States was doing a thing where they wanted people to buy American goods, right? So she wanted them to look at the tags in their clothes and notice they weren't made in the United States and that they should buy American products. It wasn't necessarily a mission that I wanted to go along with, but I told her, you know what? Take your kids to the computer lab, have them research why things aren't made in the United States, and then we'll talk. So they went to the computer lab and they found something very different. They found that children their age were being forced into labor in Africa and Asia. We had done service projects in our community. They knew how good that felt. Instantly, they said, we want to do something to help those kids. What I was able to do is find another teacher in India whose 6th grade students were working on the same problem in their country. And we said, we've got to get these kids together. We've got to let them work together, share their information that they've gotten, share their passion, and let's see where it goes. We put together a series of Skype calls where they could share their research and talk to each other. And what they decided to do was put together a website with videos on it that could be shared via social media that would show people this problem so that hopefully they could do something about it. And those kids felt great afterwards. They got some real positive feedback. So we know that when anybody, children especially, feel that intrinsic joy that comes from helping other people, they want to do more of it. That's STEM, right? That's using all of your resources, whether it's science, technology, engineering, mathematics, art, reading, research, to solve real problems in the world. That's what STEM should be. We shouldn't limit it to one subject area or a couple of subject areas. We should look at the broadest possible view to give them all of the tools that they need. And if we do that, we're going to create the problem solvers of tomorrow that are going to be able to solve, a lot of the problems that we're looking at right now, a lot of the NGOs that we connect with, the problems they're solving are multi-generational. They're not going to be able to solve them. If we're not inspiring the next generation to work on those problems, they're not going to get solved. My students, your students, students around the world, that's our opportunity to make real change. That's our opportunity to solve those things that look unsolvable. Because they felt so good, soon after that we had a cultural exchange. We sang some of the songs for our upcoming concert for a group of students in Kibera, in the Kibera slum of Nairobi. And we had them sing songs back to us. It was a great experience. Kids enjoyed the singing, Music is always a cultural connector. But after the call, my students came to me with tears in their eyes. Literally, tears coming down their face. And they said to me, Mr. Soskil, we have a beautiful school here in Newfoundland. We see the conditions that those kids are learning in. It's not acceptable. We need to do something to help them. They had felt that intrinsic joy of doing good, and they wanted to do more of it. We started the distance teaching project. I went to the students and I said, okay, how do you want to help? We don't have a lot of extra money in our community. About 60% of our kids live in poverty. 1 in 4 of our children go home to a home where one of their parents is either on drugs or alcohol. Fundraising wasn't our first choice. It wasn't where we wanted to go initially. So what they decided to do was to use the math materials that we have in our school that weren't available in that section of Kenya to teach short videos to the kids in Kenya. But you know what? Every service project should be two-way, because you never want to feel like one group is better than the other or is dictating to the other. You want to empower the other students also. So my students asked the kids in Kibera to teach us Swahili in return. As I said before, we're in a culturally not a diverse area. There's not a whole lot of foreign languages that are spoken in Newfoundland, Pennsylvania. So that was an experience for my children to learn something outside of their normal experience. And that exchange went so well. Our videos to them, their videos to us. We would get the Swahili videos and we'd play them on the morning news broadcast so that the entire school could experience them. It went so well and it was so successful that within 2 months, I had teachers from around the world saying, hey, we want in on this. We want our students to be able to experience this also. We had a group of kids from China who taught their Asian art techniques to us. A group of kids in France who started teaching French through short video. We had a group of kids in India who would teach their favorite physical education activities. Kids in Venezuela who were teaching Spanish. In Ohio, Ohio, the United States, they were teaching hands-on science activities. All of them compiled on one site so that all kids around the world could experience that learning from others. Kids who wanted to do good for others were teaching. And so I wrote a grant that I could go to Kibera and document the learning gains to see, was this really working? Is this a viable method that could be used in other places around the world? If kids were teaching because they wanted to give service to someone else, is this something that could be replicated? And along with that grant, at the same time when I found that I was traveling to Kenya, we learned about a different problem. We learned that the kids in Kibera, that lack of school supplies was not nearly their biggest obstacle, was not nearly the thing that put them in danger most. Kids were dying because they didn't have access to clean drinking water. As a matter of fact, in the 2 weeks that I was in Kenya in May, 12 children died of cholera during those 2 weeks. There was a cholera outbreak. What we were able to do was partner with kids in Kansas and kids in Greece to raise money for water filters that provided clean drinking water for 2 schools in Kibera. We partnered with the Vestergaard company, which makes a life straw filter. We were able to provide clean drinking water for every student and every staff member in those 2 schools. But in addition to that, we were able to send family filters home so that those kids would have clean drinking water at their home for their families. The most powerful moment of my teaching career, by far. Being here as a top 10 finalist for the Global Teacher Prize is wonderful. It will never compare to this moment. While I was in Kenya, I was able to put together a 7-school Skype call. 5 schools that had raised money for the water filters, and the 2 schools that received them. Kids in Kenya were hugging their water filters, tears streaming down their face. Those filters quite possibly could have saved their lives. I appreciate you clapping for me, but it's my students that did the work. I'm just thrilled that I get to pass that on to you. But the most powerful thing for me was not the kids in Kenya crying, it was what I saw through the screen, looking back home. I saw my children at home crying. They were feeling that intrinsic joy. I knew I had them. For the rest of their lives, they're going to look for opportunities to help other people. That's the empathy that's going to allow them to be successful and happy in life, right? But the power of global service learning is real, and it's free, and it's easy. Everything we use is relatively inexpensive. If you have an internet connection and a webcam, you can do this too. I'm not exceptional. I do what all of you can be doing in your classrooms also. I just want to be the messenger so that more people start doing this also. Every problem in the world has a solution that's trapped inside of our students' passions. Our job as a teacher is to help them see those connections and to see how they can use their passion to solve the problems of the world. I was lucky to have some great teachers. I happened to teach in the same district where I graduated. And I had wonderful, I'm proud to be an alumnus there representing them as well because they did a great job preparing me to be a teacher. But the most influential teacher in my life wasn't a teacher that I had. It was my mentor teacher when I first was a student teacher and I first got into the profession. And what she made every kid in her classroom feel special. She knew what each of them was about, what they were passionate about, and she would find ways to tie the learning into those passions and to make them feel like they mattered in a real meaningful way. And I knew instantly that's what I wanted to do with my kids too, that I wanted to be that kind of teacher. And her name was Anita Box. And unfortunately, she passed a couple years ago. But anytime I get to speak about her, it's special for me because I want people to know exactly what she did for me as a teacher. Thank you for asking that.